206th Street and Lexington Avenue. In 1978, at 5 o'clock in the morning, the FBI and his squadron broke into the doors of this building, allegedly to inform me that my compañero at the time, William Morales, was in an accident. William Morales was the first member of the FALN, the Armed Forces of National Liberation for the Independence of Puerto Rico, to be arrested by the federal government. Several days later, FBI agents came to my office of film and photography school around the corner to subpoena me before a grand jury. I refused to testify. On April 4th, 1980, I and 10 other of my comrades were arrested and charged with seditious conspiracy. I was sentenced to 63 years in federal prison. When I was arrested April 4th, 1980, my son was 13 months old. I made a choice in life. I knew that my son could not be raised either in Puerto Rico or the United States. So the Puerto Rican independence movement was able to have my son be raised in Chihuahua, Mexico by an incredible family, the Gomez family. Alma and Gabino Gomez are the nurturing parents of my son, Guillermo. My son lived in Chihuahua, Mexico for 10 years. It wasn't until he was 10 years old that I got to see him again and meet him again. At the age of 15, he decided to move to San Francisco to be able to visit me on a constant basis and to get to know me as his mother. Today, my son has chosen to accept his Mexican name, which I'm very proud of, because I call my son a Mex-Rican, because he has a Mexican part of him and a Puerto Rican part of him. His name now is Ernesto Gomez Gomez, and to me it's such an honor to be able to say that my son was raised by a family that taught my son who the enemy was and is, and that he is a Puerto Rican and a Mexican man. He's 29 years old. He's working on independent films. I'm very honored to say that he's worked with me on a certain project. And on May 30th, I will be visiting Chihuahua, Mexico for the first time. He will be marrying his compañera, my Tanya, his Tanya, Delgado Soto. They've been having a relationship for the past 7 years, and they've decided to have their wedding in Chihuahua, Mexico. And I'm very excited to be able to go to Chihuahua, Mexico to share that incredible moment where all of the families will come together to celebrate the lives of these two incredible young people, my son and my daughter, Ernesto and Tanya. It's interesting, I just came back from Venezuela and Cuba, and I've done numerous interviews, and people are asking me, is my son Ernesto Che Guevara, or is my daughter-in-law Tanya la guerrillera? They are who they are, but they're two young people that have a conscience and respect the movement, and I know they know that the world has to change, because I know that when they have a child, they're going to want a better place, filled with compassion, filled with love, but filled with revolutionary commitment. I honor the Gomez family for today, tomorrow, for an eternity, because they were able to give my son what I couldn't give him, which was the essence of a family, and now we're going to be able to share it together. I mentioned earlier that I was charged with seditious conspiracy, and most people have no awareness of what that is. Seditious conspiracy is Part D of the law of treason. The United States government defines it as attempting to overthrow the United States government by force. Interesting enough, every Puerto Rican that has fought for the freedom of our country, the independence of Puerto Rico, has been charged with seditious conspiracy. From Don Pedro Albizu Campo, Antonio Correger, Clemente Soto Vélez, Blanca Canales, Isabel Rosado, Lolita Lebrón, Rafael Cancel Miranda, Irving Rodríguez, Andrés Figueroa Cordero, Oscar Collazo, us, and every Puerto Rican that one day will follow in our footsteps to struggle for the independence of Puerto Rico. Interesting enough, there's only one other person that was charged with seditious conspiracy, and it was a member of the white Aryan nation. We were charged seditious conspiracy, and were sentenced from 35 to 103 years. He was sentenced to 2 years probation. The position that we took is called a position of a Puerto Rican prisoner of war. That is defined by the protocols of the Geneva Convention, which stipulate that if your country is in a declared or an undeclared war, and you are captured by the enemy, you have the right to declare yourself a prisoner of war. And that's exactly what I did with my co-defendants. We declared ourselves Puerto Rican prisoners of war. By doing that, we did not recognize the jurisdiction of the United States courts. What we did was, in all of our legal presentations, we had attorneys that were our legal advisors, and we did opening and closing statements utilizing the U.S. courtroom as an avenue to educate the courts and those that were there and anyone who bought the transcripts concerning the plight of the Puerto Rican nation. So, being a Puerto Rican prisoner of war, I am very honored to say, sets a legal precedence within the parameters of the legal binding rules of the United States government, because we have never recognized their jurisdiction. We will never recognize their jurisdiction until our nation is free. On September 10th, 1999, I and my co-defendants were given a presidential clemency by President William Jefferson Clinton. This came about because of a national and international campaign that was organized by numerous entities, elected officials, organizations, Puerto Rican young activists, and all people that were involved in human rights campaign. The reason that I am in freedom is because of the commitment that our people have had, demanding our release from the moment that we were captured. When the president gave us the clemency, we had no idea of what this clemency talked about. So it took us 10 days. We were able to get the BOP, which is called the Bureau of Prisons, to allow all of us to have conference calls. We were able to hear the voices of my co-defendants. I was able to, which I hadn't heard in almost 20 years, to discuss the conditions. And in that process, 14 of us were released. 2 have lived in Chicago, and the rest of us are living in Puerto Rico. My life in freedom has been a life filled of many experiences. One of the things I must say, that the best decision that I made was to return to my homeland, Puerto Rico. I reside in Luis al Dia, which is the former swamplands given to our black Puerto Ricans when supposedly slavery was abolished. Our Puerto Rican nation has received us with open arms, has received us with respect, and peoples of all walks of life. It doesn't matter whether they support statehood, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, or the independence movement. We were all received with a lot of respect, with much love and much support. We have to continue the struggle to guarantee that all Puerto Rican political prisoners will be home one day in the very near future. And everyone needs to become aware that the struggle for Puerto Rican independence is part and parcel of the COINTELPRO. Just like they did in the 70s, they're continuing their political repression against those who fight for the freedom of our country. But we will continue to struggle forward. We will continue to not allow the government to scare us, because we believe in the freedom and self-sovereignty of our nation. One thing for certain, one day, my nation, our nation, will be a free and self-sovereign nation. Que viva Puerto Rico libre. May all political prisoners be brought home. It's time to bring